Hello, so we are back here on our WordPress admin dashboard. In the previous video, we had gone through an overview of the Elementor dashboard. How does the canvas look like? Where are the various settings? Which feature is hidden where? So we just got an overview of the entire dashboard. Now in this video, let's understand about the Elementor elements one by one. So we will cover the containers in this video and then cover all the other elements in the upcoming videos. So let's go forward. So here we are on the WordPress admin dashboard inside pages. Now go to all pages. You remember we created this home page in the previous video. Now just click on edit with Elementor from here and we will land back on this page. Now here you can see on the left hand side there are two types of layouts that Elementor offers to you. One is container and one is grid. So let's understand them one by one. So whenever you want to start building on Elementor, you have to first place a layout on the page. So from this area, when you click on this plus button, you get an option to either select a Flexbox layout or a grid-based layout. Now what Flexbox does is that it gives you containers like these, where you can have the content inside the containers arranged vertically, horizontally. You can have containers split into two equal parts, the container split into two parts which are unequal, a container split into multiple parts like 4 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts but like a grid system. So these are the various type of structures that you get inside Flexbox layout. So the most basic way of moving forward is that we select any one of these layouts. So say for example I select this, right? Now once you select this layout, you can see that it's a Flexbox based layout. Now the layout has various options over here under layout. Then there are styles and advanced. So let's go through them one by one. So in this Flexbox layout, you can see that the container type is Flexbox and the content width is boxed. So what does that mean? It means that inside this container, the content will be boxed till here. So if you remember in the previous video, we had gone inside site settings and set the layout over here to 1180 pixels. So that is what you see there. The size of that box is 1180 pixels. So if we increase it to 1200 pixels, then the box might be this big. If we make it full page, it will be till the end of the page. If we reduce the size over there, it will be till here. So you have an option to decide the default width of this box, but you can also change it from here. So if we want the content to be in a smaller area, say for example only this much area, to see it more clearly, let me just add something over here, right? So I will just add a background to this structure. Say let me add this color. So now you can see the entire container. Now inside this container, let's add an element. Say for example a heading. So now we have added a heading inside the container. There is no space here. So let me add some space also. So I've added some space so that it's clearly possible to see what's inside. Now you can see that this is the heading. I will centrally align the heading and I will also add another item inside here. So now you see I've placed a container inside here and let me add a color to the background of this container, a different color, right? So now it will be easier for you to understand. Let me remove this heading. Okay. So you can see that the complete container is visible with this color, right? And since I've decided that the width of the content should be 759 pixel, you can see that the inside container is only this much width. It is 759 pixels. but I can decide what should be the width of the different elements inside the main container by arranging this, by changing the width in pixels. So now you see I have taken it back to 180 pixels. So this would be the width of the content that would be visible on my page. If I increase it further, the content would go up to 1400, 1550, 1570, almost 1600 pixels. So you can see I can have different sizes or different width of the content on the page. By default, I have set it to 1480. So let's bring it back to that. I can just manually do it. Now, what this does is that it gives you, sorry, it was 1280. So what this does is that it helps you decide the width of your content. So if I want to put a heading here, but I want it to be of a limited size, right? I add a heading to this section. I want it to be of a specific size. Let me add. So for example, I want the heading to be 120 pixels, right? Set it at 120. Right. And now I want the text to be visible in 3 lines and not just 2 lines. Right? So I can just go to the main container and reduce the size so that the text overflows into 3 lines. Further, if I reduce it, it goes even more, right? Into 4 or 5 lines. So I can adjust this width to make sure that I get the desired look that I want. See? So this is how you adjust the width and make it possible for you to get the desired results that you want. So let me delete this again now. I'm deleting this section, deleting this element also. So this is the main Flexbox container that we had placed. Yeah. So I'm setting the width back to 1280 pixels, which is my default width. Now this next option helps you adjust the height of the container. So I can decide what would be the minimum height of my container. So sometimes the top of the page, you want it to cover at least this much, right? When the user lands on your home page, you want to show a large hero section where you will have an image, a heading, a small text and few button options. So you can design this part by adjusting the height from here. And there are other options like view height. So if you select view height, you can decide what should be the height of that area. 100 means 100%, 80 means 80%, 90%, 60%, right? So you can use either view height or you can use pixels depending on what you prefer. And you can decide the height of this section. So for example, I make it 800 pixels or 600 pixels. So if we keep this as the height, right? Now this option here decides the direction in which the items would be aligned. The elements would be aligned inside this container. So if I go here and add a heading element, an image element, and a text element, and a button element. So these are the basic elements that are anyway present inside heading section or header section of a website, right? I will switch off this wrap. Yeah, so here you can see that inside the container, since the direction is horizontal, all the elements get added horizontally one after another. But that's not how you want the hero section look like. So you basically can change how much space each element takes and make sure that rest of the elements move to the next line by using this wrap option over here. But I will show that to you when we build actual hero page. Now when you click on vertical option from here, the elements will be aligned from top to bottom instead from left to right. If you select this reverse option, then the heading moved towards this side and the entire order has reversed now. If you select this option, the heading moved down, right? So then the image, then the button, and then the text. So this way you can change the direction in which your elements are arranged. Now justify content lets you decide where your content should be placed and where should be space. So to understand this better, let's remove some of the elements over here. Say let's remove this image element and this text element. Now you can see that these are two elements, one is heading and one is button. Now, since everything is aligned to start, all the elements are towards the left hand side. But if I click on center, the elements will be aligned to the middle. If I click on this end, all the elements are aligned towards the right. If I click on this space between, there would be space added between these two elements. If I select space around, then equal space would be added towards left, right and middle of the elements. Space evenly will make sure that the space is even. So this is how you arrange elements using justify content. Now align element. This is another option. So align elements decide where the content would be aligned in the vertical space inside the container. So if I select center, you can see all the elements are aligned vertically in the middle. If I select end, the elements are aligned to the bottom, and top anyway will put the elements to the top. So this is basically the purpose of align elements. So justify basically horizontally decides where the element would be placed, and align decides where would the elements would be placed vertically inside the container. Now gaps. As you remember in the previous video, we had set the default gap to 20 pixel. Now this gap is the space between these two elements, right? All the elements will have at least 20 pixel horizontally and vertically between them. If we increase the space, you can see that the space will keep on increasing. So I have made it 60 pixels. Now the space has increased to 60. As I keep on increasing, the space between the elements will keep on increasing. So that's the purpose of this. Let's bring it back to 20 pixels. Now wrap text. What this does is that when you have too many elements in one row and you want to you want the elements to change and wrap into the next row, you use this wrap option. So right now, if I switch on this, nothing happens. But say for example, I add a text over here, right? Now, since text needed more space, it has moved to the next space and then the button has come after it. Now, if I make the text full width, right now it is default width. Now, if I make it full width, then it should take the entire row and the button should be moved or pushed to the next line. See? So it has pushed the button to the next line. So that was the purpose of the wrap option. Now there are these other options that you might not require, but let's go through this. So align content to the top basically aligns all the content to the top, to the middle, to the bottom, spaces evenly, adds space vertically evenly between the content, adds space around the content and spaces them evenly. So for now, by default, I keep it to the start or to the middle, depending on how you want the look to be. Right? Now, all of these options that you saw now were under the layout tab. Moving on to the style tab. Now this is where you get to style your container. So the first option for you to style is that you can actually decide what should be the background of the container. Now, like you saw earlier, I had gone into normal and I had selected a classic background by clicking here, and then I selected one of the colors from here. Now I can also choose a color of my own by dragging this like this or adding a hex code over here. So you can select a colored background, or if you want, you can upload an image by choosing an image from here and uploading it as a background. So this is where you can style the look and feel of your container. If you want a little overlay on your background, you can actually do that from here. So this is adding a light opaque overlay on top of that color. Right? Now from here you can decide if there should be a border to your container. So I've added a 10 pixel border and added a shadow from here. So now you can see that the entire container has a slight shadow under it, and there is a border over here with a border radius of 10 pixels. So what is 10 pixel border radius? It means that the border is basically a little rounded at the corner at 10 pixels. So if I make it 100 pixel, you can see the border is rounded even more. So you can play along with this and create a specific type of look that you want from your container. So now I'm just removing this background back shadow and making the radius again 0, right? Now shape dividers, these allow you to create different type of dividers at the top and at the bottom of every container. So you can decide what kind of a shape divider you want and you can add it to your container. So this basically gives a different look from a standard container. So these are the settings for those shape dividers. I rarely use them. I prefer a normal container, but this is not looking bad actually. Now moving forward to the advanced tab, here is where you can actually manage the spacing, animation and other motion effects. So there are these options called margin and padding. So margin is the space that comes between different containers. It is on the outside, and padding is the space that comes on the inside. So this internal spacing from the top, you can see, right, is basically the 50 pixel spacing that I have added. If I add one more container here and add another color to it, say I want to give it this color, right? To make it more visible, let me remove the style shape divider that I added. Which one was it? I think it was this one. Stop. This one. Let's remove that. Okay. So now you can clearly see that there are two containers in different colors here. So if I click on this advanced tab over here and go to margin and add a margin, let me just delink it and add a margin to the bottom of 10 pixels. You can see that outside this container and outside this container, between them, there is a 10 pixel space added. If I make it 100 pixel space added. So this margin is a space on the outside of that particular container or that particular element. Now padding on the other hand is the space on the inside. So if you see from the top over here, there is this space, right? If I delink it and make the top space 0, the padding 0, you can see that now the content is touching the top, right? Now as I increase this padding to 10 pixel, you can see that a little space is added. I can increase it to 100 pixel, a little more space is added, right? So this is a basic thing that you need to understand. The margin is the space like over here between two containers, and padding is the space inside the container. So for now, let's bring it back to 50 pixel over here, and we don't want this 100 pixel, so we can make it 0. So I hope you understood the difference between padding and margin. If you want to add any motion effects to this particular element on scrolling, all of that can be added from here. Or if you want this element to be stick to the top or to the bottom, you can do that from here. If I select to the top and I move the page, everything that is under it, if I say we add a few more sections and make them with different colors, add another color to this one also. So now you can see, since on this container I have selected motion effect and sticky to top, now when I move the page, the first container will always stick to the top and all the other containers will move under it, right? If I make this stick to bottom, now see, so this is the purpose of this option, responsiveness. So if you want a particular section to not appear on desktop, tablet or mobile, you can hide or show them from here. So if I hide this particular section on tablet, right, now when I shift from here from desktop to tablet, you will see that particular section gets hidden and only the next section will appear to the customers. And when I move to mobile, then this section is again visible. So we can manage that from here. Custom CSS is basically something which is more technical. So we will go through this when we are building a website, when I talk to you about custom CSS. Again, this is the technical thing. So we can do this when we are building an actual website. So that was an overview about the Flexbox container. You can manage the layout from the first tab, which is the layout tab. You can decide the background and styles of that particular container from this tab. And then you can adjust the spacing from this tab. So that was an overview of the Flexbox container. Don't worry if it seemed complicated. When we start building the website, you will intuitively get to understand what settings to select. And as you keep building more and more, you will start understanding the functionalities and where they are present. So now let's understand the grid layout, which is overall in functionality, it's slightly different from the Flexbox layout, but then all the features and where to find them would be at a similar place. So now, as you saw, I clicked on this plus button here, and instead of selecting Flexbox, this time I'm selecting grid. Now again, in the grid, you have multiple options. Just select this one for now to get an understanding. So now what grid is, grid basically creates a grid-like layout on your page. So this container will look like a grid. So you will understand this better as I explain the settings to you. So now let's select this grid container. You can see the container layout is grid. So similar to the Flexbox container, this also has 3 tabs over here. The layout is where you decide the layout of the container. The style is where you will style the look and feel, the color, background and all that. Advanced is where you set the spacing and gaps and all those options. So under layout, you can see that here a grid is selected instead of Flexbox. Content width is boxed and the width is same that I had put, that is the maximum width. I can adjust the height from here of the grid. I can also change the width from here. Now grid outlines, which are these dots that you see, are visible. We can turn them off also, but it's better to keep them on. Now this grid has 2 columns in it. We can increase the number of columns by just using this option or just changing the number over here. So now this is a 5-column grid. The number of rows in this grid is 1. I can increase it to 2, 3, right? So like this, I can change the layout and look and feel of this grid. So say it is a 2-column grid now, right? Now gaps is the space between each grid. So this space that you see, the horizontal space and the vertical space. So like you can see that grid basically equally distributes the content area and there is equal spacing between the horizontal and vertical. Now you can also change the spacing by going over here, and if I want different spacing between rows and columns, I can just unlink it and then say between the columns I want 20 pixel, but between the rows I want 30 pixel. So you can change that. But since in the beginning we had set the default as 20, so let's keep the default as 20 and link that. If we click on this plus and add a heading over here. Now the thing about grid is that you can only have one element inside one grid. See, every next element that I'm adding is moving to, can only be added here. I can't add something over here. It will automatically move to the next grid. And as I keep on adding different type of elements, say I've added a button here, now the next element has to be added to the next grid, right? And now since all of the 5 grids are full here, the next grid is appearing in the next row. So there is an overflow to the row because of this selection, right? But if I select this as column, then there is a next column created over here. So I have to select this as row. This is how I prefer it. If I want more than one elements in the same grid, then I have to put a container like this. And then inside the container, I can have multiple elements. I have a heading, I can have some text under it, right? And I can have a button under it. So now, since I had placed a container in this grid, I can have multiple elements inside it. But if I directly put elements, there will be only one element in one grid. So that gives you an overview of the layout section. Now moving on to the style. Now this is where we can add the background. So we can have a normal color background, or we can put a gradient, we can have a video in the background, or we can have a slideshow. So maybe I can select a color or even upload an image from here. So say for example, I add this primary color as the background. So now this is the background of the entire grid, not each container. So just remember that if you want to add a background to each container, then you have to first put a container inside and then add elements inside it, so that you can add some kind of a background to that particular container. So now you see this container has a background, but if I select this particular grid where I have only text, then I have no option to add a background here, right? So this is really useful in creating cards. So we'll see that when we actually build a website. So background overlay, like you saw in Flexbox, this helps you add an overlay on top of your background color, right? So we can change the opacity from here. Now border lets you add if you want a solid border, you can just select this and a solid border will be added around the container. So here you can see the border, there is a black border over here. I can increase the width of the border. Now it's clearly visible, but I prefer not to have a border over here. So I will remove this and put it as none. Border radius adds a curve to the border. So if I make it 20 pixel, a small rounding happens at the end of the border. If I make it 200 pixels, it will be more round. So like this, we can design the borders of the container. The shape divider, again, like we saw in Flexbox, we can add shape dividers to the top and bottom of the grid container. The advanced tab lets you adjust the spacing between the elements or between different containers. The margin section lets you add spacing between different containers. So if at the top I add a 10 pixel, this spacing would be added between these two containers. If I make it 100, the spacing is increased between the containers. Whereas in the padding, if I add 10 pixel or 100 pixel, now you can see this spacing is added inside the container. So you can adjust the inside spacing and outside spacing using margins and paddings. Now this is alignment. Again, the motion effects, as I told you, sticky, non-sticky, other scrolling effects can be set from here. So these are a little complicated settings which we will go through while we are building a website. But overall, the layout, the style, and the advanced section do more or less similar things on both type of containers. The only slight difference is the way the grid containers look like and the way the Flexbox container look like. So I hope this small tutorial gave you an overview and an idea about the difference between Flexbox containers and the grid containers. Now both the container types are really useful in building really beautiful websites, but the easiest way to get started is to start with the Flexbox containers. So that is what we will use extensively in building websites as we move forward, and we will use grids only wherever they are required. So I hope I was able to teach you the difference between grid and Flexbox containers and how you can use them. This was just an overview. You will find the link to all these screenshots and all the functionalities in the description, so you can just download that checklist and the screenshots and you can just look at them and follow them as per your convenience. In the next video, we will start looking at different elements on the Elementor dashboard so that you are able to understand them better, and then we will use them when we are building the websites. So I hope you got some value from this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a nice day.